Hello everyone, welcome to the GeoEcologist. I am Dr. Krishnanand and you have been watching my videos on models, theories and laws in human geography of late. In this series, one of the most important theory related to political geography, or we say geostrategy and geopolitics of the world, is this particular theory called Mackinder's Heartland Theory. Now, when we discuss Heartland theory, it's important to understand that what is Heartland, what are its various concepts and connotations, and what is its application in today's world as well. So these things are going to be talked about in this particular theory. So keep watching the video till the end. And also, before you go ahead, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and do share the videos with others as well. So now let's learn about Heartland theory. But before we go into the theory itself, let's understand a little about this gentleman called Sir Halford John Mackinder, who was the foundation stone of geography in UK. That is, he was an English geographer, an academic, a politician, and also remember, he is regarded as the founding fathers of both geopolitics and geostrategy. Now, why is it important to learn about Mackinder? Because in end of 19th century, when geography departments were already established in Germany and France, remember in 1895, he was one of the founders of London School of Economics, which also hosted a department of geography. And at Oxford, Mackinder was the driving force behind the creation of School of Geography in 1899, the same year, remember, when Davis gave his fluvial cycle of erosion. Right? So, Mackinder's role is very important in terms of creation of geography department, geographical knowledge, studies, research in United Kingdom. That's important. So, in 1904, remember when in America, Davis was going to establish an Association of American Geographers. In the same year, in UK, Mackinder gave a paper on the geographical pivot of history. Pivot, where have you heard the word? Maybe pivot joint. Pivot is a pillar along which things rotate like this, isn't it? So it's kind of a central position. So geographical pivot of the world or geographical pivot of history basically means that location is important primarily here, which acts as a pivot for all the developments of geostrategy and geopolitics all around the world, which was part of his paper presented at Royal Geographical Society, in which he formulated this concept of the Heartland theory. So Heartland theory was not the book that he wrote. The paper that he presented in 1904 was basically the geographical pivot of history, under which the concept of Heartland theory was discussed, right? So this is often considered as the foundation or founding moment for geopolitical studies across the world, right? As a field of independent study also, political geography gained strength after this particular theory came. Although Mackinder himself never used this word called geopolitics in his work, but later on different scholars came and added on to this. So, Heartland theory initially received very little attention when it was propounded. But as the situation grew further, remember the First World War, the Second World War, it became very important and very famous theory because it talked about geostrategy, geopolitics, alliances of different countries and creation of power centers across the world. The Heartland means basically the power center. Right? So this is what is important in this theory. Now let's elaborate and understand. So after 1904, his next major work, what is Democratic Ideals and Reality, a study of politics of reconstruction. This work, this volume was published in 1919, right? 15 years after when he talked about Heartland theory concept. And in this book, what is important is the crux, or what you can say is the core of this particular theory, Heartland theory. The three statements that you need to just remember if you want to understand this theory. Who rules East Europe commands the Heartland. It means Eastern Europe is going to be the Heartland. It's like human body analogy. So if you command the heart, it means you have the circulatory system in your control, right? So who rules East Europe commands the Heartland. And who rules the Heartland will obviously command the world island. So what is the world island? The other areas of the world which are surrounding this Heartland. And who rules the world island commands the entire world. So it was more about a geostrategy, a geopolitical theory in which it was important to command or have power control over Eastern Europe and that was 1919. Now remember, coming out of the First World War, this theory really gained importance because First World War was all centered around Eastern Europe as well. Right? So that's important. And Mackinder's last major work was in 1943, yet another article where it is called The Round World and Winning of the Peace. And in this, he also envisioned the post-war world, how it would be, how that there will be a transfer or shift of power centers. Right? So he further modified his Heartland theory in 1943 as well. So Mackinder is often credited with introducing these two new terms to English language, which was not there before, manpower and heartland. Now remember, this is very important point to put here as the building block of this theory. Now understand this particular concept of heartland here in this particular map as well, and as concept these keywords are important. So if you observe, this is the heartland, this particular portion, and then this is the outer portion here, outer crescent if you say. So the heartland or pivot area is basically that landmass which is part of central part of Eurasia, right, which is surrounded by mountainous fortresses from three sides and Arctic Ocean in the north. So it was kind of a protected area which was envisioned by Mackinder, that it is protected from all sides by mountains and also Arctic Sea which is on the north. So this is kind of a power center which is also having a natural boundary. Then world island was defined as Eurasia and Africa combined together, which are 2/3 of the world area. So this is what is the Asia and Africa combined together nearby this heartland. This is the world island. And inner or marginal crescent. Now what is a crescent? Crescent is this shape. So this crescent is what is important here. So first you have inner margin crescent and then you have outer margin crescent, which was talked about. So the inner margin crescent was composed of Western Europe, Western Asia, Indian subcontinent, Southeast Asia and Eastern China. But what was the outer? Outer was basically North America and South America and Australia, which was divided by these oceans in between. Right? So that's how he conceptualized his theory, that if you really want to command on the world, in the world island, in the entire world, you must have control on the heartland. This kind of theory was made as an important geopolitical theory in 1904. Now, according to this theory, any power which controlled the world island would control almost 50% of the world resources. And this is very important in terms of geostrategy and geopolitics and power alliances in the world, isn't it? Because if you control 50% of world resources, you control virtually half of the world, and indirectly you will control full world eventually. So Mackinder held that effective political domination of the heartland by a single authority, a single power, had been unattainable. Why in the past? Because of two reasons. One was heartland was protected from sea power by ice in the north. This was ice sea in the north. And what was there? Mountains and deserts in the south, right? So mountains and deserts in the south. That's why it was kind of inaccessible and protected area. And previous land invasions from east to west and from west to east were unsuccessful. Because of what? Because of lack of efficient transportation, which made it impossible to assure a continual stream of men and supplies in the warfare. That's why no single power could ever capture this heartland or make control of this, according to Mackinder. So that's where this theory is based. That in particular outline, if you observe here, heartland might become a springboard for global domination in 20th century was his idea. So successful invasion of Russia by West European nation could be one potential factor which could lead to it. So who would do it? Probably Germany would do it, according to Mackinder. Russo-German alliance could happen. So this pivot area could be controlled by this alliance. Or in third scenario, he said that if there is a Russian conquest by Sino-Japanese empire, it means if China and Japan rule over this finally, then it could be attainable by one single power sometime. So these three cases were envisioned by Mackinder for the future power center. So one of the Mackinder's personal objective was to actually warn Britain that if you don't take care right now and if you don't plan your geostrategy, remember the traditional reliance on sea power would become ineffective after some time. It will become your weakness if you don't understand it right now. So improved land transport was very important, and this was kind of a warning through his research, through this model that he built called Heartland Theory for United Kingdom. Now in 1919, what you observe, there was a little modification that he brought with the second paper, remember, in which he added certain more areas to the heartland, which was the Black and Baltic Sea basins as well, right? And then finally in 1943, what he did was another modification and modified this concept of Midland Basin as well, incorporated it in his theory that this was heartland and this was Midland Ocean, basically talking about Atlantic here, right? So Midland Basin included the countries that surrounded Midland Ocean, and he said that if you really want to rule the world, you need to control Midland Ocean Basin as well in 1943. So Western Europe, that is France, Belgium, Britain, and North America, these are the parts of this particular Midland Ocean. So Heartland and Midland Ocean. If you control Heartland, you will be controlling Midland Ocean and then subsequently the entire world. That was important in 1943. So what is the criticism here if you observe in this particular theory? The criticism is basically that Mackinder oversimplified his deterministic viewpoint of geopolitics in the world, right? That these struggle between the land and sea powers, which is far from truth, isn't it? So history is influenced not just by these powers like this, as he envisioned, but also physical, socio-economic and cultural factors with conflict of interest, not just location or pivot or heartland area, isn't it? So he overlooked the fact that heartland was a region of permanent difficulties. Now remember, Eastern Europe and Northern Europe and Russia or Siberia, these are very harsh conditions in terms of climate, in terms of accessibility. So how would a single power control it? And also this would lead to the control over world island. This was kind of a conflict of ideas when other scholars looked at it. So this was because of extremities which he overlooked. Then heartland is also not as resourceful as other parts of the world. Now remember, Middle East is ruling since the formation of OPEC countries. It's like heartland of the oil production in the world, isn't it? It controls most of the share of oil across the world. So OPEC countries are potentially modern heartland in context of, if you say, world's oil production. Right? That's what is important to understand, that resourceful regions are important, but it was not taken care in this particular theory. Then geographical causation of history is questionable. Now this statement is important here. Now remember, only location or geographical factors cannot lead to a particular historical cause or historical development in itself. Right? It has to be agglomeration of different factors, which he did not mention. So geographical factors are just subordinate to human beings' technological factor and changes. And when remember, according to humanistic school of geographical thought, where anthropocentric approach is there, where human being dominates through its technology, through its culture, there just geographical physical factors won't work. That's important criticism. And the real world was not flat as presented by Mackinder on this particular projection, that is a flat earth with that particular area as geographical pivot and Arctic in the north surrounded by these mountains in the south. So this virtually a flat world concept fell apart. It's a really important theory in terms of understanding of geopolitics and how the world shaped and developed through the wars. First World War to Second World War, and then what happened. So if you observe in current scenario, in present times, how can we look into it? Remember, this theory gains importance again. Why? Because it's not about that heartland concept was just about the Eastern Europe control. But remember now, heartland, if you modify further in today's context, if you understand what has happened, there is a constant struggle between Russia and USA, right, since the Cold War times, and there can be seen annexation of Crimea by Russia in 2014 again. So it's again working since last decade, right? And rising demand for membership of NATO among Eastern European states have also increased, right? Then rise of Chinese influence has led to creation of a different sort of power alliance in the world, especially through Eurasia, if you observe, right? Then Indian Ocean region has gained strength, right? So it's no more part of the outskirt or the, you can say, the outer crescent, but it has become a really important regional unit in terms of global growth, global trade, Asia Pacific region. Then this is why IOR, Indian Ocean region, is said to be the new heartland of this world, because it is controlling world's trade virtually now, right? So this can be seen in growing interaction among major powers here as well, right? Everybody wants economic investments in Southeast Asia, in Indo-Pacific region now, right? So now the heartland in today's world is not obsolete theory. It's just changing its dimension, that we can say, right? So it continues to have its importance, and there is a shift to a multipolar world rather than unipolar world, which was talked about, that only one power should control. Rather here, multipolar alliances, multipolar world is there in the picture in today's world. So now, when we have discussed in details the Mackinder's Heartland theory, in the sessions to come, we'll be talking on one of the more important theory in political geography, that is Rimland theory. So stay tuned, stay safe, keep watching, keep learning. Best wishes.